Welcome to a deep dive. Today, we're exploring a material that has quite literally been underfoot and overhead for thousands of years. Terracotta tiles.
It really has. It's more than just, a building material. It's got this incredible history, a real personality, and yes, some distinct quirks that anyone working with tile and stone really needs to understand.
Absolutely. And for you, our listener, whether you're a seasoned tile pro, a designer, or just really curious, we've gone through a stack of sources, technical guides, historical bits, installation manuals, and we're boiling it all down.
Mhm.
Our mission is basically to pull out those crucial nuggets, the surprising facts, point out exactly where the installation gets tricky, and lay out the undeniable benefits that make terracotta such a compelling choice.
Yeah, think of this as your shortcut to being truly well informed about this ancient material, drawing directly from, all that information out there.
Okay, let's dig in then. What is terracotta at its core? I mean, where does it come from, and what gives it that look we all recognize?
Well, the name itself tells you a lot, actually. Terracotta, it's Italian for baked earth. So fundamentally, it's a clay-based ceramic material that's fired in a kiln.
Baked earth.
Yeah.
Simple origins for something so enduring. And that signature color, that warm reddish-brown everyone pictures.
Yeah, that color is basically a result of the iron content that's naturally in the clay. When it gets fired, the iron oxidizes, reacts, and creates those characteristic earthy reds, browns, oranges, sometimes even pinks.
Mhm.
The exact shape, it varies depending on the specific minerals in that clay source and how hot it's fired.
So it's the earth itself giving it that color palette. That's fascinating.
Yeah.
How far back are we talking with this stuff? Is it just old or like ancient old?
Oh, we are definitely talking ancient. The history of terracotta spans over 5,000 years.
Wow.
Its use traces back to civilizations like Mesopotamia, maybe around 3000 BCE. You see it in ancient Egypt, China. The classical Greeks used it, but the Romans really took it to another level in construction.
The Romans, always building things to last, weren't they? What are they doing with it?
They used it extensively, particularly for roofing. They developed that incredibly effective imbrex and tegula system, those flat tiles laid side by side, covered by curved tiles over the joints, made a really watertight roof.
Ah, yeah.
It was ingenious, really, and widely adopted.
And you still see echoes of that system in roofing design today, don't you? That says a lot about its practicality.
It really does. And its use continued right through the Middle Ages. Think of those rustic Italian farmhouses.
Hmm.
You also see incredible artistry in places influenced by Moorish design, where terracotta was used in intricate geometric patterns, sometimes glazed. And the Renaissance famously relied on it, that iconic dome on the Florence Cathedral.
All right.
Terracotta played a key structural role there.
So it's just woven into the fabric of architectural history across continents. It's more than just a floor tile, too, right? I mean, people use it for other things.
Oh, much more. While we often think of floors and walls, the sources mention its traditional use in pottery, bricks, pipes, sculptures. And interestingly, some modern uses include custom three-dimensional products like furniture elements, light fixtures, even basins.
Furniture and basins.
Mhm.
Okay, that is surprisingly versatile. But if I'm a designer or installer, and I'm comparing terracotta to other ceramic tiles,
Mhm.
what are the fundamental differences I really need to lock onto?
Okay, the key differences are really in the material itself and its properties. First, unlike a lot of mass-produced ceramics, which use engineered clay bodies, terracotta comes from specific natural clay. It's often used in its more raw, unglazed state, which gives it that distinct rustic, sort of matte appearance.
So it looks more natural by default.
Often, yes. The second, and this is arguably the most critical difference, is porosity.
Okay.
Terracotta is inherently more porous than many denser ceramic or porcelain tiles. This means it absorbs liquids readily, which is exactly why proper sealing is pretty much non-negotiable for most applications.
Ah, so the porosity isn't just a characteristic, it's kind of the root cause of a lot of the installation and maintenance requirements we'll probably talk about.
Exactly. It's fundamental. And even within terracotta itself, the sources highlight variations. You've got unglazed, which is that natural matte look, great if you want to apply your own specific sealer or finish.
Right.
And then there's glazed terracotta, which adds a protective layer, makes it less porous, often shinier, and, easier to clean from day one.
And the way it's made also creates different types, like handmade versus machine.
Yes, Absolutely. Handmade terracotta offers that unique character. You get variations in size, texture, those charming little pits, undulations, uneven edges. It's that perfectly imperfect quality the sources mention.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Then you have machine-made types, sometimes called quarry tile. They offer uniformity in shape, size, color, usually with a thinner profile, more consistent.
So you can choose, basically. Lean into that rustic artisan feel or go for something more predictable depending on the project's look.
Precisely. Sources also differentiate between porous and denser types, although, honestly, even the denser ones usually benefit from sealing. And firing matters too. Kiln-fired is hard and durable, almost like stone. Sun-baked, on the other hand, is much less robust, usually only suitable for very specific low-wear spots.
Okay.
There are regional variations too, like a popular Mexican type known for its durability and distinct color variation.
Okay, so we understand what it is, ancient, versatile baked earth with inherent porosity and these charming variations. Now let's talk about the real work, getting this stuff installed. Here's where the sources really emphasize the nuances and, frankly, where it can get a bit tricky.
It absolutely requires a different mindset than installing, say, uniform porcelain tiles. It demands skill and real attention to detail at every single stage.
What are the absolute must-dos before you even think about mixing up any thin set?
Right. Pre-installation steps are critical. First, obviously, inspect everything for damage. But the most crucial pre-step, highlighted repeatedly in the sources, is acclimation.
Acclimation.
Because terracotta is porous and sensitive to humidity and temperature changes, it must be acclimated in the installation area for at least 48 hours. This prevents potential expansion or contraction issues after it's installed.
Right.
And if the tiles feel damp at all, they need to dry out completely first.
48 hours waiting time before you even start. That's a key piece of planning professionals really need to bake into the schedule, isn't it?
It is. Skipping that can lead to major headaches down the road. Then planning the layout is essential. You have to dry lay these tiles.
No skipping that.
No way. It's the only way to really see the color blend, distribute variations from different boxes, which is important. Plan your pattern and figure out where your cuts will fall, especially with those potentially irregular edges. Starting from the center usually helps balance the layout.
And then the step you mentioned earlier that's kind of unique to porous tiles pre-sealing. Tell me more about that.
Absolutely critical, especially for unglazed porous terracotta. You apply a suitable sealer before grouting. This acts as a barrier, like a grout release, making the cleanup after grouting infinitely easier by preventing the grout from sticking permanently in the pores and textures. The sources strongly recommend testing the sealer on a sample tile first, always.
Good tip.
You'll likely need multiple coats, often 2 to 4, depending on how porous that specific tile is, letting each coat dry properly according to the manufacturer's instructions. That could be anywhere from, say, 2 to 12 hours per coat.
Wow, okay.
Some terracotta is actually sold unsealed specifically so you can choose your preferred sealer, but the rule holds: seal before you grout.
Pre-sealing sounds like prevents a major headache down the line. What about the surface you're installing onto, the subfloor?
Subfloor prep is completely non-negotiable. The surface must be clean, dry, and level. Remove any old flooring, debris, repair cracks. It has to be structurally sound, no bouncy or loose sections.
And moisture seems like a big potential enemy here, given the tile's porosity.
It is. You absolutely must check the subfloor for moisture levels, maybe using a meter. Address any underlying moisture problems first, and maybe consider installing a moisture barrier. The subfloor just has to be adequately dry.
Right.
And any high or low spots. They need to be leveled with a suitable compound to ensure a flat, consistent base for the tiles.
Clean, level, dry, stable, and moisture controlled. Got it. Moving on to the sticky part, the adhesive itself.
Right. You need an adhesive specifically designed for porous tiles or natural stone. Cement-based adhesives are commonly used. The tile's porosity actually helps create a strong mechanical bond as the mortar cures into the tile body itself.
Interesting.
Epoxy adhesives are another option. They offer excellent bond strength and moisture resistance, so they're particularly useful in potentially wet areas.
Apply with a notch trowel. That sounds pretty standard. But the sources really emphasize something crucial here, especially for handmade tiles: back bettering.
Yes. Back buttering every tile is highly recommended. Handmade terracotta, especially, can have uneven backs or vary slightly in curvature or thickness. Back buttering ensures you get full adhesive contact, fills any hollows on the back, and it allows you to slightly adjust the adhesive thickness behind each tile to help manage those thickness variations and minimize lippage. You set the tile firmly, give it a little twist, collapse those ridges.
So you're essentially creating a perfectly flat back on an imperfect tile to ensure a solid bond and a smoother final surface. Clever. What about managing those thickness variations once the tiles are actually set?
You will have variations, especially with handmade tiles. Managing lippage, where the edge of one tile is higher than the next, is just part of installing terracotta. Techniques like really diligent back buttering and slightly adjusting the adhesive level under each tile are key.
Right.
And remember that dry layout step we talked about?
Yeah.
Blending tiles from different boxes before you start laying helps distribute color and tone variations evenly across the floor.
Yeah.
Prevents obvious patches of dark or light tiles.
Good point. Speaking of the tiles themselves, they can be fragile sometimes, right? How do you handle cutting them?
Care is definitely needed. For straight cuts, a wet tile saw with a good diamond blade is your best bet. And a detail highlighted in the sources is to regularly change the water in your saw.
Oh, why is that?
Dirty water can actually introduce stains into the porous edge of the terracotta as you cut it.
Oh, wow. That's a pro tip right there. Don't ruin the tile with your dirty saw water.
Exactly. Tile nippers can work for small cuts, curves, or irregular shapes, and an angle grinder is also an option for certain cuts. Measure carefully, mark accurately, cut gently, avoid trying to make very tiny cuts, maybe under 15 millimeter or so.
Okay.
And one source specifically noted terracotta isn't really ideal for external miters. And the obvious, but crucial stuff. Always wear safety glasses and other proper gear.
All right. Tiles are laid, adhesive is set. Time for the moment of truth, grouting. The sources make this sound like potentially the biggest headache of the whole process.
The grouting gauntlet? Yeah, maybe. First, you need to wait until the adhesive is fully cured before starting. For grout, you'll likely use sanded grout for the wider joints typically needed for terracotta. Unsanded is usually only for very, very narrow joints.
And applying it, how does that go?
You spread it diagonally across the tiles with the grout float, pressing firmly to ensure the joints are completely filled. Work in small sections. The immediate challenge comes with cleaning off the excess.
Right.
You wipe diagonally with a damp sponge, not wet, damp soon after applying, rinsing the sponge constantly in clean water. The goal is to remove the grout haze from the tile surface without pulling the fresh grout out of the joints.
Okay, that sounds like standard grouting cleanup.
Okay.
So what makes it so particularly tricky for terracotta?
It's that porosity and texture again. Grout sticks to the surface even if you pre-sealed. It gets into those little pits, the texture, the slight undulations. The sources really emphasize how difficult it can be to remove completely. Even with pre-sealing, you might need a stiff nylon brush to get residue out of crevices. And here's a major warning. While acid cleaners might seem like the solution for stubborn residue, sources report they can potentially damage the finish of the tile.
Oof.
Yeah, especially if not diluted correctly or if the sealer isn't robust enough. It's a really tricky balance.
So the fix for one problem, the grout haze, could actually create another problem by damaging the tile itself. That really highlights the importance of that initial pre-sealing step.
Absolutely. It minimizes the problem right from the start. For very rough or highly textured tiles where grout sticking is a huge issue, or if a design calls for basically no grout visible on the tile face, sources mention using a grout bag to pipe grout directly into the joints.
Like decorating a cake.
Kind of, yeah. Or even masking off the tile edges with tape. But these require a highly skilled installer. They're definitely not beginner techniques.
Gotcha. And the grout joint width itself is wider than for typical tiles, right?
Correct. Those size variations and irregular edges, especially with handmade or reclaimed terracotta, they demand wider joints to accommodate them. Sources suggest typical widths anywhere from maybe 316 of an inch up to 34 of an inch for some reclaimed types. That's roughly 5 to 10 millimeters.
Okay.
Machine-made might allow slightly narrower joints, maybe 5 to 8 millimeters, but still likely wider than you'd use for porcelain.
And is there a potential issue with the grout within the joint itself, maybe because of the tile thickness varying?
Yes, that's another nuance. Because the tiles vary in thickness, the actual depth of the joint can fluctuate across the installation. It can be challenging to ensure the grout is packed densely all the way down to the subfloor or adhesive layer through the full thickness of the tile edge.
I see.
If the grout isn't fully packed, it can leave voids. Those voids weaken the joint and could potentially lead to loosening or failure over time.
So grouting isn't just about filling the space between tiles. It's really about managing texture, porosity, variable thickness, and making sure that joint is solid from top to bottom. Wow. Okay, once that complex process is done and the grout is cured and totally dry, the final, crucial step, sealing.
Yes, and it is crucial that both the tiles and the grout are bone dry before this final sealing. Grout can take several days to fully dry out, especially if it's humid.
And this final seal is different from the pre-sealing we talked about earlier.
Yeah, the pre-seal was primarily to help with grout cleanup. This final seal is the main protector for the long haul. Terracotta needs this to protect it from daily life spills like oil, wine, dirt, whatever, that would otherwise penetrate and stain permanently. It's absolutely vital for long-term durability and making ongoing cleaning manageable.
What type of sealer should professionals be looking for then?
You need a good penetrating sealer, specifically designed for porous stone and terracotta. Sources describe different types depending on the final look you want. Some maintain a very natural matte finish. Others give a wet look, which enhances and deepens the color quite a bit. And some provide a darker, enriched appearance, sometimes achieved with products like boiled linseed oil, although that has its own application nuances. There are also options for a final layer, sometimes wax-based, that adds a subtle sheen and can make daily cleaning a bit easier.
So the choice of sealer really impacts the final aesthetic as well as the level of protection.
Absolutely. You apply it according to the manufacturer's instructions, usually with a brush, roller, or maybe a sprayer, making sure it really penetrates into both the tile and the grout joints.
Right.
And you've got to wipe off any excess before it dries and gets tacky.
And multiple coats are usually needed for this final seal too.
Yeah.
Often, yes, particularly on very porous tiles. Sources commonly recommend 2 to 4 coats, allowing adequate drying time between each one. And of course, you need to let the sealer fully cure according to the product directions before you allow heavy foot traffic on the surface.
And does sealing the grout happen separately from sealing the tile here?
Well, the penetrating tile sealer will often soak into the grout as well, providing some protection. But for extra security, or if you're using a specific grout sealer product, you can apply sealer specifically just to the grout lines. Some finishing products, though, are designed to go over both the tile and grout in the final coats, providing a nice uniform protective layer.
Okay, so we've wrestled with the history, unpacked the material properties, and navigated the pretty significant complexities of installation, from acclimation and pre-sealing to that tricky grouting and the final protection. With all those challenges, why does terracotta continue to be such a popular and, well, enduring material? What's the big payoff?
The payoff is really in its inherent qualities and the unique character it brings to a space. I mean, its durability and longevity are legendary. We've talked about it lasting over 5,000 years in historical examples.
Right.
When it's properly installed, sealed, and maintained, it's incredibly hard-wearing. It can handle heavy foot traffic for generations. Some sources even note it actually gets stronger over time as it patinas. Kiln-fired is significantly more durable than sun-baked, naturally.
So the history isn't just interesting trivia, it's actual proof of its toughness.
Exactly. It stood the ultimate test, you know.
Yeah.
And then there's the aesthetic and the feel. It has this timeless beauty, this rustic charm and warmth that's just hard to replicate.
Yeah.
And natural variations in color and texture that make it tricky to install. Those are also what give it its character, that perfectly imperfect look we mentioned.
Yeah.
It ages beautifully, too, developing a rich patina over time.
It really does add soul to a space, doesn't it?
It does, and it's incredibly versatile stylistically. While it's a natural fit for Mediterranean, Spanish, or Mexican designs, it can also bring this grounding, earthy element to modern or even minimalist spaces. The colors, the textures, the ability to use different shapes and patterns, it offers significant design flexibility.
Beyond looks and toughness, any other big selling points that come up in the sources?
Sustainability is a major one today, definitely. It's made from abundant natural clay, it's recyclable, and generally requires less energy to produce than porcelain or some other ceramics. It typically has low VOC emissions, making it a really environmentally conscious choice.
It's a strong point for many clients now, for sure.
It is, and there are practical benefits, too. It has natural cooling properties, which is great for warmer climates.
Oh, interesting.
It's fire-resistant and safe. And it's compatible with underfloor heating systems. It retains and radiates heat quite effectively.
So cool in summer, helps hold warmth in winter, and fire safe. What about maintenance once it's all in and sealed? Is it a constant battle because of that porosity we keep talking about?
No, actually, that's where the sealing really pays off. Once properly sealed and cured, ongoing maintenance is relatively straightforward. Regular sweeping or vacuuming, and using a mild pH-neutral cleaner for mopping is usually enough. Spills should wipe up easily if the surface is properly sealed.
Okay, low maintenance once properly sealed. That seems to be the key phrase here.
Absolutely. And its versatility extends to where you can use it. Suitable for indoors and outdoors again, with correct sealing and installation for the climate floors, walls, backsplashes, patios, walkways.
We touched on the variety types earlier too, the handmade versus machine-made.
Right, that choice between the unique character and the consistency. Different regional types offer different looks and properties too. The range of colors, traditional shapes like squares, hexagons, octagons, or more decorative ones like arabesque or picket shapes. Plus the possibility for those custom 3D elements we mentioned earlier, there's a lot of design potential there.
And often, it's seen as maybe a more affordable natural material option compared to some stones.
Relatively speaking, yes. Sources indicate it can be more budget-friendly than certain natural stones or highly customized handcrafted tiles, especially if you look at regionally sourced options. That popular Mexican type, for instance, is noted in sources as often ranging from maybe $3 to $9 per square foot. Reclaimed types, though, can be significantly more expensive due to their age and uniqueness.
So it doesn't necessarily have to break the bank.
Not necessarily. Regional sourcing, maybe opting for machine-made over complex handmade shapes, choosing simpler geometric patterns, and even buying pre-sealed tiles that can save cost and effort can make it a more budget-conscious choice compared to other high-end finishes.
Okay, so summing up, terracotta is beautiful, incredibly durable, sustainable, versatile, can be affordable, but undeniably, it demands a high level of skill and care for successful installation because of its inherent properties and variations.
Exactly. And this brings us to a final, really crucial point for anyone specifying selling or installing terracotta, setting clear expectations for the client.
This seems absolutely vital. You can't just show them a picture of the beautiful installed floor. You have to explain the reality of the material itself.
Precisely. It's essential to communicate the absolute necessity of proper sealing due to its porosity. And explain that this isn't just a one-time thing. It requires multiple coats initially and then periodic resealing, typically every few years, depending on where and the sealer used to maintain that protection.
And managing expectations about its appearance too, right? Those variations.
Yes. You have to clearly communicate that the natural variations in color, texture, size, even thickness are not defects. They're inherent to the material and part of its charm. They are cherished characteristics that contribute to its unique, authentic appeal, and the installation process will embrace these variations, not fight them.
And highlighting the skill required for the installation itself.
This is so key for client satisfaction and the project's success in the long run. Explain that installing natural terracotta, especially handmade types, is more complex than standard tile and requires a skilled installer experienced with this specific material. They'll have the techniques to navigate the challenges we discussed, the thickness variation, lippage control, and particularly that tricky grouting process to ensure longevity and a beautiful finish.
And setting clear expectations for ongoing care as well.
Yes, absolutely. Outline the maintenance specifics. Using only pH-neutral cleaners, avoiding harsh chemicals or abrasives, cleaning spills promptly. Mentioning that reapplying finishes might be necessary after intensive cleaning sometimes. And being upfront about the wider grout joints and potential grouting challenges helps manage client expectations about the final look and texture of the floor or wall.
So upfront, clear communication about the material's true nature, the installation complexities, the required maintenance, exactly why a skilled professional is essential.
That's the best way to ensure the client absolutely loves their terracotta for years and years to come. So they appreciate its unique qualities rather than being frustrated by perceived issues that are just part of the deal. When expectations are aligned and it's installed correctly, the result truly is a stunning, durable, and timeless surface.
Okay, so what does this all mean? We've taken a pretty deep dive into the world of terracotta today. We've uncovered its ancient story, grappled with its installation challenges, which definitely demand respect and expertise, and celebrated its incredible durability, unique beauty, and undeniable benefits.
Yeah, it's clearly a material with immense character and resilience. It requires skill and care from the people who work with it, but it rewards that effort with beauty and longevity that can literally last for centuries. It's pretty amazing stuff.
So here's maybe a final thought for you to consider. In a design world that often seems to push for perfect uniformity and flawless finishes, what can embracing the inherent variation and that the imperfect nature of a material like terracotta teach us about valuing authenticity, history, and maybe the beauty that comes with natural imperfection in our spaces?